everyone, my name is Carrie Ann Morrison, and I am a graduate student from UT Dallas. Today, I'm going to be talking about a paper my team and I just published in Autism entitled Variability in First Impressions of Autistic Adults made by Neurotypical Raters is driven more by characteristics of the rater than by characteristics of autistic adults. The reason we did this study is that in my lab, we have been interested in studying first impressions of autistic adults formed by neurotypical peers. Many studies have now found that, unfortunately, autistic adults are often initially perceived more negatively than neurotypical adults. These initial perceptions are often called first impressions, and they can affect real-world social experiences and outcomes, such as interviewing for a job or trying to make new friends. In our lab, we've now been studying what factors predict these impressions to better understand how they might be improved. In this study, we wanted to look at how neurotypicals' understanding and acceptance of autism related to the first impressions they formed of autistic adults. We predicted that people with more knowledge about autism, more experience with autistic people, and less stigma towards autism would rate autistic people more favorably on first impressions. We also wanted to see if these abilities impacted first impressions differently for different types of labels for autism. Since there are so many different ways for autism status to be identified, such as autism spectrum, Asperger's, or autistic, we wanted to see if neurotypical adults held any preconceived notions about these different labels that would affect their impression formation. We used 20 videos of autistic adults speaking for 10 seconds about why they should be selected to be on a TV show. We then showed these videos to 505 undergraduate neurotypical raters. Each video was labeled either as "this person has no diagnosis" or with one of 5 autism descriptor labels. Videos could be labeled as "this person has autism," "this person is autistic," "this person has Asperger's," "this person is on the autism spectrum," or "this person has a disability." Raters then rated each video on 10 first impressions. For example, how awkward or attractive they thought the autistic person was, and how much they would be interested and comfortable with interacting with the person. They also completed questionnaires measuring their attitudes, knowledge, and contact with autism, so we could examine how individual differences in autism familiarity in neurotypical adults relate to the impressions they form of autistic people. Importantly, we found that the ratings were more heavily influenced by the person making the rating than by the autistic person being viewed in the video. What this means is there is a lot of variability in how autistic adults get evaluated, but most of this variability has to do with the characteristics of the neurotypical rater rather than the characteristics of the autistic adults. So the same autistic adult may get rated very differently by neurotypical raters, and we wanted to see if we could figure out some of the reasons why. As we predicted, we found that neurotypical adults with less autism-related stigma and more knowledge rated autistic adults more favorably. We also found that autistic adults were more positively rated when they had any of the 5 labels compared to when they were labeled as "this person has no diagnosis," and there weren't any specific advantage or disadvantages for any of the different autism labels. This supports findings of ours from previous paper we published suggesting that first impressions of autistic adults made by neurotypical peers tends to be more positive when the neurotypical adult is aware of the autistic person's diagnosis. However, in this study, we found an important qualifier for this conclusion. We found that neurotypical adults with stigmatized beliefs about autism actually rated autistic adults more negatively on first impressions when they were informed that the person had an autism diagnosis. This suggests to us that the effect of disclosing one's autism diagnosis on first impressions depends upon the characteristics of the person one is disclosing to. Generally, we find that our undergraduate raters are quite accepting of autism and have low stigma towards it, so disclosure is often beneficial, but it can have the opposite effect when the rater does not hold a favorable attitude about autism. In sum, our findings add to the growing body of evidence that the social experiences of autistic adults are powerfully shaped by the attitudes and acceptance of autism among those they encounter. We are now examining whether certain autism training programs for neurotypical adults may lead to more positive social experiences and outcomes for autistic adults. For more information about the study, please click the link to the article below. Thank you for listening.